If you close your eyes and just think of the word city, not just, a collection of houses, but the absolute archetype of a metropolis, a place that whispers stories of empires, what comes to mind?
I mean, most people today are going to say New York with the skyscrapers. Or maybe London.
Right, London with the fog.
Yeah.
But if we are being historically accurate, we really shouldn't be thinking of the West at all.
No, definitely not.
We should be thinking of a place that, for centuries, was effectively the center of the world.
It's the place that literally invented the concept of a world capital.
Exactly.
A place so grand and so imposing and eventually so decadent that it became a byword for both civilization and sin across almost every language.
We are talking, of course, about Babylon.
Yes.
And I am so excited about this deep dive today because, well, usually when we talk about ancient history, it can feel a little dry.
Pottery shards and dust.
Right, just textbook stuff. But the source material we have today, this document called Babylon, the Eternal Majesty of Mesopotamia, it paints a totally different picture.
It really does.
Our mission today isn't just to look at ancient ruins. We are looking at a civilization that served as the cradle for human ambition over 4,000 years ago. They essentially figured out the hardware of how to build a city and the software of how to run a society.
I love that framing. Hardware and software. Because you really cannot have one without the other.
No.
If you build a massive wall, but you don't have laws to govern the people inside, you just have a very large prison.
Right, and if you have laws but no walls...
you get conquered next Tuesday.
Exactly, and Babylon mastered both. And they did it in a place that wasn't exactly, easy to live in.
Not at all.
We are dropping into the heart of Mesopotamia, right between the Tigris and Euphrates Rivers. And we learn in grade school that this is the Fertile Crescent.
The cradle of civilization.
Right. But looking at the geography in our source, it wasn't a paradise. It was tough.
It's a crucial distinction to make right off the bat. If you look at Egypt, the Nile floods like clockwork.
It's predictable.
Highly predictable. You can set your calendar by it. But the Tigris and Euphrates, they are chaotic.
Violent, even.
Very violent. They flood unpredictably. They wipe out crops, destroy whole villages without any warning.
Which, that has to completely mess with your head.
It shapes your entire worldview. The Mesopotamians viewed the universe as a chaotic, dangerous place where order had to be imposed by sheer force.
Nature was actively trying to kill you.
Yes. The gods were fickle. So when they built Babylon, they weren't just building shelter. They were trying to carve a pocket of order out of the chaos.
Which sets the stage perfectly for our first big figure. We're jumping back to the 18th century BC. The city is growing, trade routes are buzzing, but it desperately needs structure. Enter King Hammurabi.
The visionary.
Yeah, the man with the plan and the man with the pillar. Hammurabi is famous for his code. We've all heard an eye for an eye.
Sure.
But looking at the details of his reign from the source, he wasn't just a conqueror writing up listicles of punishments. He was fundamentally changing how justice worked.
He was shifting the burden of justice from the tribe to the state.
That's the aha moment.
Exactly. Before Hammurabi, if you stole my goat, my family would come burn down your house.
And then your family would kill my cousin.
Right. It's a blood feud. It's endless. Hammurabi steps in and says, no, the king decides the punishment. And once the punishment is dealt, it is over.
And he put it on a literal pedestal.
A massive diorite stele, 7 feet tall.
Which is just brilliant marketing.
Oh, absolutely. By carving the laws into stone, a material that doesn't rot or fade, he is sending a message.
These rules are eternal.
Yes, and he placed it in public. Now keep in mind, most people couldn't read.
But just seeing it there.
Exactly. It's a physical reminder that the law is always watching you. It provided a necessary framework for society.
Let's talk about the laws themselves, because some of them cover everything. Family matters, property rights. And they seem pretty harsh by modern standards.
It is an incredibly comprehensive code. And yes, harsh is the right word. A good chunk of the laws end with the phrase, he shall be put to death. But there is a very specific logic to it. Take the builder's laws, for instance.
Oh, I saw that. This is the ultimate contractor liability clause.
It really is. The code says, if a builder constructs a house for a man and does not make his construction sound,
and the house collapses and kills the homeowner,
the builder shall be put to death.
Simple?
Brutal.
But highly effective.
It definitely incentivizes double-checking your foundation work.
It does. But if you look deeper into what the source is telling us, it is about accountability.
Going back to the chaotic environment.
Exactly. In a chaotic world with those unpredictable flooding rivers, Hammurabi was trying to create predictability for his people.
If I pay you for a service, I need to know it is safe.
It is essentially the great-grandfather of our modern consumer protection laws, just with much, much higher stakes.
It's the software upgrade that allowed the society to scale. You can't have thousands of strangers living together if everyone is just settling scores privately. You need the code. Precisely. The code allowed Babylon to function as a complex machine. And once you have that internal stability, you can start dreaming bigger.
You can start focusing on the hardware.
Which brings us to the Golden Age.
Right, so we are fast-forwarding centuries here.
Mm.
The empire has had its ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
But in the 6th century BC, we get the King of Kings, Nebuchadnezzar II.
The builder king.
If Hammurabi was the lawyer, Nebuchadnezzar was the architect.
That is a great comparison. And he didn't do subtle.
No, the descriptions of the city under his rule in the source material are mind-boggling. It transforms from a regional power into this massive metropolis and cultural center.
He wanted Babylon to be the center of the universe. Quite literally, he rebuilt the grand palaces, and he built the temples rising toward the sky.
Dedicated to Marduk, right?
Yes, Marduk, the chief god of the Babylonian pantheon. But Nebuchadnezzar's most practical and probably terrifying achievement was the walls.
I wanted to ask you about these because when you read the ancient accounts, the scale seems impossible.
It was massive construction meant to symbolize absolute invincibility. We are talking about an incredibly thick double wall system.
And the detail that always sticks out to me is the roadway on top.
Right. The walls were so wide that they say you could race chariots on top of them.
4-horse chariots.
4-horse chariots racing on top of the city wall.
That is not a wall. That is an elevated highway.
Think about the psychological impact of that. You are an enemy soldier. You march across the desert to attack Babylon. You look up and you don't just see a barricade. You see the Babylonian army racing chariots across the skyline.
Looking down on you.
It sends a very clear message. We are untouchable.
Intimidation through engineering.
Exactly. And inside those walls, he turned the city into a marvel. The palaces were decorated with colorful glazed bricks depicting royal victories, mythological creatures.
Which brings us to the Ishtar Gate. This is probably the most famous visual we have of Babylon today. It was the grand entrance to the city.
Dedicated to the goddess of love and war.
And it was blue. This bright, vivid blue.
Which, in the ancient world, is a huge statement of wealth.
Because blue pigment was rare.
Very rare. It usually came from lapis lazuli, which had to be imported from far away. But Nebuchadnezzar's engineers figured out how to create a glazed brick that mimicked that color.
To cover an entire massive gate in this bright blue, it was him saying, I have so much wealth, I can build a mountain of gemstones.
And walking through it felt like entering a dream. It was a pure declaration of artistic sophistication.
And the animals raised on the bricks, the bulls and dragons.
Symbols of divine power and fertility. Yes, right. Walking through that gate was walking into the protection of the gods.
But speaking of creating things that seem impossible, we have to tackle the big one.
The Hanging Gardens.
The mystery of the Hanging Gardens. It is Nebuchadnezzar's most famous creation, but also the most debated.
The phantom wonder of the ancient world.
So, the romance of the legend goes that he built them for his Median wife, Midas.
Right.
She grew up in the green hills of her homeland. She moves to Babylon, which is flat and arid. She gets terribly homesick.
So, like a good husband with unlimited resources, he decides to build her a mountain in the middle of the city.
A terrace structure filled with exotic plants, trees, and flowers.
It sounds beautiful.
And they kept it alive in the desert, using a clever system of aqueducts and pumps.
Yes, essentially screwing water uphill to irrigate this massive artificial oasis.
But the big question from the source material, did it actually exist?
Scholars still debate this heavily. There is a lot of controversy. The main issue is that no definitive archaeological evidence has been found in Babylon to prove they were there.
They still debate the exact location.
Right. Some think they might have been built in Nineveh by a different king.
But whether they existed exactly as described or not, they remain this enduring symbol of paradise, an ancient wonder.
Exactly. It represents that Babylonian spirit, the drive to master their environment.
Which transitions us perfectly from stones to people. Because Babylon wasn't just a fortress, it was a strategic trade hub.
A vibrant center connecting entirely different cultures.
It was a melting pot of languages, traditions, and beliefs. A real hub of knowledge.
And the intellectual life there was staggering. The scholars and astronomers.
Let's talk about the astronomers, because they meticulously studied celestial bodies.
They did, and the knowledge they developed influenced later scientific progress in ways we still use today.
Right, when we look at our clocks or use a compass.
That is Babylon. They used a base 60 math system, which is why we have 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour.
And 360 degrees in a circle.
Exactly. We are still living in the mathematical framework they built.
It's amazing to think about they were doing this incredible intellectual and economic activity,
while also holding unprecedented military power.
So we have a city that is the absolute height of artistic splendor, intellectual depth, and power. It feels completely invincible.
But the thing about history is nothing is invincible.
Right. Let's talk about the fall, because for a city this fortified, remember the chariot-sized walls, you would think it would take a decade-long siege to break in?
The Babylonians certainly thought so. But in 539 BC, the inevitable decline hits. Persian Emperor Cyrus the Great conquers Babylon.
And he ends its independent rule.
Yes.
But how did he do it? Because the source notes they felt completely secure.
They had stockpiled food. They had the Euphrates River running right through the middle of the city for water.
They were throwing a festival.
Exactly. But Cyrus was brilliant. He saw their greatest strength, the river, and turned it into a fatal weakness.
Because the river runs under the massive walls.
Right. So Cyrus takes his army upstream, out of sight, and he has his engineers dig canals to divert the Euphrates.
Lowering the water level.
Significantly. So while the city is feasting, the water drops, and the Persian troops just wade right down the riverbed.
Right under the iron gates.
The walls didn't matter at all. The city fell almost without a fight.
That is just incredible. To go from master of the world to conquered in a single night.
It ended their independent rule permanently.
Now, to be clear from the source, the city wasn't destroyed right then. It remained inhabited under Persian and later Greek rule.
Yes, it survived for a long time. Alexander the Great even spent time there. But it never regained its former dominance.
And then the decay really sets in.
Over the centuries, trade routes shifted. The complex irrigation systems that kept the city alive eventually fell into disrepair.
Without the maintenance, the water stops flowing.
And the desert reclaims it all. The grand palaces crumbled, sandstorms literally covered the buildings.
The fertile plains returned to barrenness.
It is a stark image. The greatest city in the world, just dissolving back into the dirt.
Until the archaeologists arrived.
Right. The archaeological resurrection. Excavators piecing the story together through the ziggurats and thousands of cuneiform tablets.
Digging the eternal majesty back out of the sand.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the why it matters part of our deep dive today. When we summarize the legacy of Babylon, it really represents the ultimate cycle of empires.
It does. It shows us how power rises, peaks, and inevitably falls.
But its contributions, the laws, the architecture, the astronomy, those continue to inspire. The spirit of the city lives on as a symbol of human achievement.
The physical hardware crumbled, but the software is still running.
So, recapping our journey today, we went from Hammurabi's pillars of justice, imposing order on chaos,
to the incredible blue tiles of the Ishtar Gate and the massive walls of Nebuchadnezzar.
And we saw how a single clever tactical move by Cyrus brought it all down. But it's vital for you, the listener, to remember that the foundations of law and science we recognize today, consumer protections, the minutes on your watch, they have their roots deep in this ancient soil.
We are walking on paths they paved.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought. Babylon proves that while stone and mortar may crumble to sand, the force of human ambition, the stories we carve into history, can survive across the vast distance of time.
Beautifully said.
So the question for you to mull over is this. What pillars are we building today that will last 4,000 years?
Something to really think about.
Definitely. Thank you for joining me to unpack all this today.
It was a great conversation.
And for everyone listening, next time you check your watch or read a contract, give a little nod to the minds of ancient Mesopotamia. We will catch you on the next deep dive.